My name is Chea Montia, and I have discovered that teenage drug abuse is found to be a very common issue in America. But no one really evaluates exactly how this becomes a problem, such as how one's past could lead them to drug abuse, how the environment that one surrounds themselves in, and more. In my podcast, I will be assessing how these factors contribute to a teenager to be led to drug use with the use of online sources and interviews from peers who have had someone very close to them suffer from adolescent drug use. For example, according to healthyplace.com, it has been scientifically proven that drug abuse can and often runs in families. While having one or both parents that abuse drugs influences a child to grow up and follow in their parents' footsteps, it can still be possible for that child to grow up without the use of drugs and live a more sustainable life. It has also been common for a child who was birthed from drug-addicted mothers to increase the likelihood of an adolescent or young adult to become addicted to the same drug the mother had taken during her pregnancy, according to Project No. It was stated in this source that the individual was genetically predisposed to the drug, making it easy for him or her to become addicted to the drug if it is ever consumed. Although genetics can be a significant factor when it comes to drug abuse in adolescents, there are more influences that deal with this topic besides genetics. I have interviewed someone I know who has suffered from drug abuse due to the influence from family and loved ones. Their response to my questions: what influenced you to try drugs? How has this affected your present? How has your past factored into your addiction? And do you have any family members who have abused drugs?
Growing up, I always watched my parents do drugs because my family has a long line of drug abuse. For me, I always thought that it was normal because everyone in my household did it, so I felt that it was okay for me to do it as well. As I started to get older, I realized that everything started spiraling out of control. I lost really good relationships with my friends and some of my extended family members because I thought I wasn't able to quit on time. It affected my education because I stopped showing up to classes sometimes to get high. In the end, I felt like I had no purpose in life and like I was just going through the motions. I'm fighting this addiction to this day, and I'm thankful for everyone who has tried to help me, although I've cut many people out of my life who have tried helping me before.
Other causes for teenage drug abuse can be factors such as mental illness, environmental causes, and more. Moreover, as mentioned before, drug abuse can correspond with issues such as mental illness. Mental illness can influence drug abuse by simply attempting to fix or cope with the symptoms that follow one's mental illness, or even simply by trying to help one with depression. Someone with depression can use these drugs to try to escape their depression by getting high to avoid the reality that is their life to self-medicate. Again, this is not the sole factor to contribute to drug abuse. Not everyone with mental illness suffers from drug abuse, so there are more factors to contribute to this issue according to healthyplace.com. I then interviewed a Texas Tech student who had begun their addiction for multiple other factors, such as the atmosphere they surrounded themselves in, and asked the same questions I previously asked in my other interview. The response was,
I have done drugs before. I started with marijuana when I was about 14 years old and moved on to harder drugs such as cocaine and prescription opioid usage around the age of 16. So what prompted me to start using was when I started high school, I hung out with some older friends and they all smoked marijuana, so I decided to try it. Through the usage of that, I met a lot of people who did drugs, and that's when I started to want and try harder drugs. The way this affected me is I struggled a lot with my schoolwork, and it definitely put a strain on my relationships with friends and family. My family threw out thousands of dollars to try and help me with my addictions, which in turn started to turn into fights. Although I am clean now and have fixed many of the relationships that I messed up, it still to this day haunts me that I was so overcome by drugs that I didn't even realize what I was not only doing to my relationships, but what I did to my parents' marriage. Not only that, it affected my relationship with my little brother the most. He had so much hate for me during all of this, and we have talked a lot of the problems out, but I still think deep down he has a hate for what I did to our family. Like I said in one of my other answers, I hung out with mostly older people when I started doing drugs, and from there, in a way, I felt peer pressured to do it, but I was also just curious as a high schooler to try new things. I do. My oldest brother, who is a half-brother, got very involved in drugs. He was caught one time processing an entire marijuana plant out of our mom's house when me and my youngest brother were just 4 and 1. He was kicked out to live with his dad, which was when he would disappear for days at a time, and then became involved with the drug cartel in South Texas. He really had 3 different options at the end of this: to join the military and clean up his act, go to prison, or finally just be killed by his decisions.
Furthermore, not only can these specific causes influence one to abuse drugs, but it can also be a combination of everything of many factors that can put a person at risk. There have been many cases that one may begin using drugs as a cry for help. As I did my research, reading through my source, Project No, I discovered that many young adults begin taking drugs as a way to act out or be rebellious towards a parent, especially if they were abused or suffered from neglect when they were younger. Little do the teenagers who do this know that once one gets addicted to drugs, the function of their brain alters, which makes it harder to fight off the addiction, and eventually this drug will change every aspect of that person's life. According to Project No, when a significant amount of these drugs is taken, the dopamine levels in a person's brain begin to surge, triggering feelings of euphoria and intense pleasure. The longer the drug is taken, the shorter the feeling of euphoria lasts, which means that the person must consume more of the drug to get the same effects. The brain begins to crave the drug because of the physical sensation that the drug provides, which is why it is so difficult for individuals to stop consuming drugs after becoming addicted. If you or someone you know and care about deeply suffer from drug abuse, there are many ways to get help. One way is by visiting stopaddiction.us to get the help you need.